Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continuing our readings from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter number 9. Answers by citing the Lord's version. We're on text number 9. Text 9. Tasmai salokam bhagavan sabhajita sandarshayam asaparam nayatparam yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasam swadrishtavadbir purishar abhishtutam tasmai salokam bhagavan sabhajita sandarshayam asaparam nayatparam Yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasam swadrishtavadbir purishar abhishtutam tasmai salokam bhagavan sabhajita santarshayam asaparam nayatparam Yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasam swadrishtavadbir purishar abhishtutam
Tasmai Salokam Bhagavan Sabhajita Darshayamasa Nayat Param Yapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sadvasam Adjustavadbir Purusharabhishtutam.
Tasmai Swalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita Sandarshayam Asaparang Yat Na Yat Param Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sadvasang Swadrishtavadbir Purusharabhishtutam.
Tasmai Sulokam Bhagavan Sabhajita Sandarshayam Asaparam Nayatparam Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sadvasam Swadrishtavadbir Purushar Avishtutam.
Tasmai Shalokam Bhagavan Sabhichatiyahi Sandarshayam Asaparam Nayatparam Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sadvasam Swadrishtavadbhir Purusharabhishtutam.
Tasmai Swalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita Sandarshayamasa param na yat param. Vyapeta sanklesha vimoha sarvasam. Swadrishtavadbir purusharabhishtutam.
Tasmai Swalokam Bhagavan Sahajita Sandarshayam Asha Param Nayat Param Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sarvasam Swadristavyabhir Purusharabhishtutam. Tasmai, unto him, Swalokam, his own planet or abode, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, Sabhajita, being pleased by the penance of Brahma, Sandarshayam Asa, manifested, Param, the supreme, Na, not, yet, of which, Param, further supreme, Yapeta, completely given up, Sanklesha, 5 kinds of material afflictions, Vimoha, without illusion, Sadvasam, fear of material existence, Swadrishta, or Swadrishtavadbi, by those who have perfectly realized the self, Purushai, by persons, Abhishtutam, worshipped by. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. Purport. The troubles of penance accepted by Lord Brahma were certainly in the line of devotional service, bhakti. Otherwise, there was no chance that Vaikuntha or Swalokam, the Lord's personal abodes, would become visible to Brahmaji. The personal abodes of the Lord, known as Vaikunthas, are neither mythical nor material, as conceived by the impersonalist. But realization of the transcendental abodes of the Lord is possible only through devotional service, and thus the devotees enter into such abodes. There is undoubtedly trouble in executing penance, but the trouble accepted in executing bhakti yoga is transcendental happiness from very beginning, whereas the trouble of penance and other processes of self-realization, namely jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, etc., without any Vaikuntha realization, ends in trouble only and nothing more. There is no profit in biting husks without grains. Similarly, there is no profit in executing troublesome penances other than bhakti yoga for self-realization. Executing bhakti yoga is exactly like sitting on the lotus sprouted of the abdomen of the transcendental personality of Godhead. For Lord Brahma was seated there. Brahmaji was able to please the Lord, and the Lord was also pleased to show Brahmaji his personal abode. Srila Jiva Goswami, in the comments of his Krama Sandarbha annotation of Srimad Bhagavatam, cites quotations from the Garga Upanishad, Vedic evidence. It is said that Yajnavalkya described the transcendental abode of the Lord to Gargi, and that the abode of the Lord is situated above the highest planet of the universe, namely Brahmaloka. This abode of the Lord, although described in revealed scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, remains only a myth for the less intelligent class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Herein the word Sodrishtavadvi is very significant. One who actually has realized his self realizes the transcendental form of oneself. Impersonal realization of the self in the Supreme is not complete because it is just an opposite conception of material personalities. The personality of Godhead and the personalities of the devotees of the Lord are all transcendental. They do not have material bodies. The material body is overcast with 5 kinds of miserable conditions, namely ignorance, material conception, attachment, hatred, and absorption. As long as one is overwhelmed by these 5 kinds of material miseries, there is no question of entering into the Vaikuntha lokas. The impersonal conception of oneself is just the negation of material personality and is far from the positive existence of personal form. The personal forms of the transcendental abode will be explained in the following verses. Ramaji also described the highest planet of Vaikuntha Loka as Goloka Vrindavan, where the Lord resides as a cowherd boy keeping transcendental Surabhi cows and surrounded by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Chintamani prakara sadma sukhalpa vriksha lakshariteshu sarabhirapi palayantam lakshmi sahasra shata sambrama sevyamanam govindamari purusham namaham bhajami. Brahma Samhita 529. The statement of the Bhagavad Gita, Yadgatva Nanivartante Tadama Paramam Mama, is also confirmed herewith. Param means transcendental Brahman. Therefore, the abode of the Lord is also Brahman, non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is known as Vaikuntha, and his abode is also known as Vaikuntha. Such Vaikuntha realization and worship can be made possible by transcendental form and sense. Translation again. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. Maharaj, we would love to hear your thoughts or comments on this text in purport. So, this is a very nice chapter, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The last chapter, who remembers what it was called? Anybody? Yes, questions by Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was asking a whole slew of questions to Shukadeva Goswami, and Shukadeva Goswami is responding, and it's titled thus, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. And he begins by describing this interaction between Lord Brahma and Lord Krishna, or Lord Narayan, who is revealing this Vaikuntha to him. So we were hearing yesterday how he was going through austerities for so many years. It's said by 1,000 years by calculation of the demigods. And Krishna Shravana Prabhu so wonderfully gave us some transcendental math class that kind of broke it down how long that is, put it in perspective. But yeah, Brahma, he heard this word tapa and he began performing austerities. At first, he tried to figure out where this came from. But after not being able to find that, he said, okay, let me follow the instruction. Let me follow that. And by performing these austerities, the Lord was pleased with him. And the Lord manifested Vaikuntha before his very eyes and gave him darshan of himself. And when he did thus, the Lord told him that this is the highest perfection is that one can have, is to have darshan of me, to see me directly with the senses, with your experiencing me directly, which is very nice because at face value, you could say, okay, yeah, that's the highest thing, is to see the Lord. But one can further analyze what's the highest form of seeing the Lord, of associating with the Lord. And Sanatana Goswami so wonderfully elaborates this very, very, very thoroughly in his Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It's describing Narada Muni's journey across the universe, trying to find which devotees have attained the most mercy of the Lord, and ultimately Gopakumar is on a similar journey throughout the whole universe, because he has a certain affection, a certain attraction for the Lord, and everywhere he ends up, it's nice, it's blissful serving God, but it just doesn't fully do it for him. And there was examples where he's serving somewhere. He started at different temples and serving different deities, and he made it to Jagannath Puri, and then he heard of another place, and then he went to the heavenly planets, and ultimately Vaikuntha in the spiritual world. But each place he would get there and he would relish the nectar of service to the Lord, but then something would hinder that service. The Lord would leave, or I haven't finished it, but I was recently reading, he's in Vaikuntha, and there was mixed feelings, because Gopal had a bit of a friendly relationship with the Lord, and some of the other devotees were there, and they were disturbed by this. They didn't like it. So this was hindering the rasa, the exchange of love between the Lord. So I just wanted to point that out, that Sanatana Goswami thoroughly analyzes this notion of what it actually means to see the Lord, and different levels of what that is, because we can read and say, okay, to see the Lord's the highest, but what's the highest form of that even? And our acharyas have painted that picture so nicely. So after attaining darshan of the Lord blesses Brahma. He gives him his blessings, and Brahma inquires from him. I wrote it down just to have it more clear, but he inquired from him that he was wondering how the Lord takes form, although he is a transcendental form, how he appears to take a mundane form, although he has no form. So he is bewildered by the nature of the Lord's rupa, his form. And he also asked how the Lord manifests all these various energies through himself for creation and maintenance and destruction of all that is. How this one personality, this divine personality, through his own energies, manifests those energies in various ways for the manifestation, creation, maintenance, and destruction. And another nice point is that he prays that he's not affected by pride in the due course of discharging his service. We may have some kind of service and we may develop pride. Hopefully it's in service, at least. We may have pride in many other aspects that aren't directly related to service. But Brahma is given this most important service of architecting, engineering this material world. So we develop pride in our minuscule activities that we have had before devotional service and while performing devotional service. Just imagine performing the task that Brahma has to perform. Very easy to develop pride. So he's praying to the Lord that he's not affected by this pride. So then the Lord responds to him, and this is a very pivotal, essential part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is referred to as the Chatur Shloki. It's the 4 original seed verses that are spoken by the Lord, which are later expanded upon by Brahma to Narada to Vyasadeva, and through all of our acharyas who have expanded on this transcendental message. One point on that is, I remember hearing the devotees ask Srila Prabhupada, they were asking specifically about Joan of Arc. She was a revolutionary, I believe, in France, and she was divinely inspired. And they asked Prabhupada if this was Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada said, yes, the Bhagavatam is glorifying the Lord's devotees and the efforts that they go through to please the Lord, to serve the Lord. So the Srimad Bhagavatam isn't just limited to this physical book that we have here in front of us. In the heavenly planets, the higher planetary systems, the Srimad Bhagavatam is much, much lengthier, goes into much more depth. They have more time, more intelligence, more everything you need to ascertain and relish the message. There's also more enjoyment, which can distract one from wanting to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's there. And when the Lord speaks this Chatra Shloki, it's very nice. He said essentially that he existed before everything was created. Everything that is existing now is coming from him. And after annihilation, all that exists is the Lord. So everything is the Lord in all facets of life. Before, what we see was here. Everything that we see and experience now has its creation and origin coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after destruction, that what will remain is the Lord. And he says, if something is not directly related to me, then know this to be Maya, my illusory energy. So how do we know if something is Maya? Yes, if it's not directly related to the Lord. So, but another point on this is in the last one, which I'll get to in a second, he kind of connects it to that. So then the third one, he says, the Lord is both within everything and also beyond everything. And he gives the example, just like material elements which enter into the world, but they're also independent, which Prabhupada, he gave the example that, different earthly elements combine to manifest to form our bodies, and our bodies existing for some time, but then when the body's destroyed, the elements go back to where they were. So it's within it, but it's also separate at the same time. So the Lord is there, pervading and within everything, but at the same time, he's aloof, he's beyond it all. And then the final one, he says, a person seeking the truth must search for it up to this point. Meaning someone seeking the truth must seek out all these points and always view these aspects in all time, places, and circumstances, and both directly and indirectly, which I thought that was nice because it kind of connects to, how do we know if something is directly related to Krishna or not? We have to look for these aspects directly and indirectly. And there's this shloka in the Sri Upanishad I really like that talks about, if one wants to understand the transcendental nature of reality, he must, if one wants to attain self-realization, essentially, one must understand transcendence and nescience side by side. So we have to understand, we have to see the Lord directly in all things and also see the Lord's hand within all things. So we're seeing everything connected to Krishna, and we see this by seeing through the adorning our eyes with the eyes of the scripture, Chakshu Shastra. So then when our intelligence is sharp by hearing this transcendental message, then we can learn to connect everything we see in relation to Krishna. And there's a funny example I like on this part. I remember hearing a lecture by Bhadranarayan Swami, and he was talking about devotees were training to see everything in relation to Krishna. And he was talking about they had a temple or an ashram or a house, I forget where, but they had a problem with the plumbing, and they needed the plumbing fixed. And there was a crawl space under the house, and they had to like crawl under there and open up the pipes and do something. And long story short, the plumber, he goes crawling in there and he opens up the pipe, and some kind of like sewage or nasty gunk comes out, and there's nowhere for him to go, and it gets all over him. It's the nature of being a plumber. But when this happens, he's shouting all these profane words and he's cursing and yelling. But devotee is in the same situation, and he's doing the same thing, but he's yelling, Krishna, Madhava, Govinda. So we're dealing with the same things, but we're training ourselves to always connect to Krishna and always see things in relation to Krishna, which is purifying. And in that way, it's very wonderful, which Prabhupada, he pointed out here in connection to Brahma's penance that he performed. He said that, where's what he said? He said, there is undoubtedly trouble in executing penance, but the trouble accepted in executing bhakti yoga is transcendental happiness from the very beginning, whereas the trouble of penance and other processes of self-realization without any Vaikuntha realization ends in trouble only and nothing more. I mean, we're all going through penance and austerities for so many different things. It's unavoidable. This is the nature of the material world. It's funny because we often have distributed books and we say, oh, this is on yoga and meditation. It'll help you be free from stress. Which I thought was funny because yesterday I was listening to a lecture by my Guru Maharaj, and he was talking about stress. Like, this doesn't help us be free from stress. If anything, it gives us more stress. He was talking about in relation to him, he's traveling all around the world, going from one plane to the next plane, so much stress, so much austerities. So it's not that by taking up devotional service, we're seeking just a life of shanti, of peace and quiet and solitude. No, we're stressing for the Lord because we realize it's either we can do penance and austerities for our own self gratification, our own sense gratification, our own self-aggrandizement, our own pride, or we can do it for the Lord. And when we do it for the Lord, it's purifying, it's enlightening, it's enlivening. And this is what Prabhupada is pointing out, that from day one, there's transcendental happiness derived from this penance that we do for the Lord. So it might be difficult and challenging at different times, but still there's always nectar there. And what does Krishna say? He says that one's acting in the mode of passion. Things in the beginning taste like nectar, and in the end they taste like poison. Shri Gordon Taiki Jai. But when one's cultivating sattva gun, at first it can taste like poison, but then it tastes like nectar. So Krishna consciousness is like this because we're conditioned to the lower modes of material nature. We have to develop more of a sattvic lifestyle so we can be able to perform devotional service regularly, which devotional service is not dependent upon sattva gun by any means. But because we're conditioned to the lower modes of material nature, we need a purification so we can actually do that. Otherwise, we might take up a service such as, say, serving the deities or dressing the deities. At first, it may think, okay, this is awesome. This is so fun. I get to dress all these colors and put these new dresses. And then after a week or 2 weeks, it's like, oh, I already used all these. I'm tired of waking up and doing this at the same time every day. I want to take a break, chant japa when everybody's doing this, but I can't do that. So we have to, push through this and, stay in the fire. By staying in the fire, we can develop the same qualities as fire. So the purification at different times in devotional service can be very challenging to our false ego, to our conditioned nature. But the more that we stick with it, the more we'll see benefits. And if we're able to put aside our troubled mentality, our desires, our attachments, I mean, this is really the thing that hinders us the most in life. We're given everything by our acharyas, by Srila Prabhupada. Here, chant this mantra, be happy. Distribute these books, be happy. Take prasadam, be happy. Associate with devotees, be happy. But we have ideas in our mind of how things should go. Oh, I want to associate like this. I want to do like this. I want to do like that. So we become disturbed because we have some kind of pre-concocted or deep-rooted idea of how things should go that will make me happy. So then the tendency is to adjust our external situation. Then let me change my external situation. Let me change to this place, change to this ashram, do this, do that, thinking that these things will make us happy. But really, it's all about an internal shift of just relinquishing our desires and praying to the Lord that we can work according to His will, His desire. And if we're not able to do that, I mean, even if we are able to do that, but we need the mercy of the acharyas who are living in that line, who set the example of how we can actually achieve that and how to follow that. So Brahma, after hearing this Chatur Shloki spoken by the Lord vanished. He removed himself, and Brahma went to performing his duties of creation, and he spoke this Srimad Bhagavatam that he heard from the Lord to Narada, and from Narada to Vyasadeva, and like I already mentioned, they all expanded upon this, elaborating much further on the transcendental science. And yeah, we're fortunate now because we can look at the parampara, and in one essence, in one aspect, it's great that Brahma heard directly from the Lord. And one could think, oh, it'd be better if I just heard directly from the Lord myself. But with each acharya who's passing on this message, there's more and more and more blessings. And the examples given that, was it that? Anyways, there's more blessings from each acharya who's passing on this message, because one's hearing from his guru, from his spiritual master, and he's developing realizations and he's elaborating on it further and further. So at this time, we're fortunate because we can read the purports of Srila Prabhupada, we can read the purports of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Jiva Goswami, many other great devotees, and there's so many great aspects and different angles of vision of seeing this same message that can be traced back to these original 4 shlokas in this Bhagavatam, which we'll be hearing in a few weeks. Actually, it's still a little ways away. So thank you everybody for tolerating me and hearing. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts? Jagannath was the quickest on the draw.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was just wondering. I was just wondering why we get more blessings. I think you touched on it a little bit, but like, is it because they know we become more fallen as time goes on, or is it just because the acharyas they give us a new perspective on the same subject matter?
They do give us more and more diverse perspectives on the same subject matter. That's there. But also, Vaishnava is supremely compassionate. They want to help the conditioned souls. And, Prabhupada, in this nice purport in the Bhagavad Gita, points out that the devotee is more merciful than the Lord himself, because the devotee, he's stuck in this situation. He knows what it's like, and he wants to help the other conditioned souls. He can relate to them. So we could look up, at the wall right here and see all of these acharyas, and they're all willing, wanting, dying, you could say, or living to shower blessings and mercy upon us. We just have to, open our hands. We have to be open to it. We have to receive it. So the point is that with each successor, each acharya, as the parampara grows, there'll be more and more pictures on this wall, for instance. So then there's more personalities to shower blessings and mercy, more personalities for us to pray to take shelter of. We may have certain devotees that we like hearing lectures from, and they inspire us and they encourage us in Krishna consciousness. Be more and more and more and more devotees that we can connect to and relate to, and get the mercy from. So, and that way, as it expands, there's more blessings.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, you touched on it in the class. It was like the first paragraph in the purport. You reread it, and I was wondering, why would somebody with some kind of Vaikuntha realization, especially this day and age, even take up any of these other yoga processes? I mean, Prabhupada's mentioning, without Vaikuntha realization, practice of these is very difficult, right? But it's almost implying, like, you know what I mean? Why would somebody take it up if they have Vaikuntha realization? Wouldn't they just take up Bhakti Yoga?
Well, Bhakti Yoga is the easiest and most simple and also most sublime process. It's a very direct path. Some people tend to overlook that aspect. They see the devotees just chanting, and somebody could come here and they're accustomed to doing, silent meditation and yoga and whatever, and they see the devotees just like running around stressed out, like I mentioned. So it's like, why do I want to live like that? They're just stressed out, running here, running there. I got to do this, I got to do that. But these stresses that we're undergoing for the Lord's pleasure is blissful. It's brings satisfaction, and one has to venture into that, to taste that, to realize that. But I mean, further to elaborate on that point is that, yeah, we're all coming from different conditional backgrounds, and different people have different tendencies and different natures, and we have different anartas and impurities. And like I mentioned, how Sanat Goswami is thoroughly analyzing, the different rasas, you could say, of devotional service, the different mellows that develop between the devotees and the Lord. There's countless, innumerable ways of devotees relating with the Lord. So it's not to say that, this is the only way and that everybody is going to take to this. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, only few people take to this process in general. We all know that shloka, but, a different angle of vision on that is that, of all the innumerable entities that are here, say if they all took the devotional service, they're not all going to have the same service. Because we're not robots. We all have our own individual nature. So some, might have more of a Vaikuntha consciousness of directly Vaikuntha, all in reverence, some Goloka Vrindavan. But, ultimately, you could say lack of knowledge. Because if one has pure knowledge, they could see that, this is the highest way to act. And it's simple. And I mean, it makes sense in all spheres of life. And, a great example that I like to give is that, I don't know where this is from, but I've heard this from devotees, is that, Narada Muni was traveling, and he went to Vrindavan, and there he goes to the Yamuna, and he sees on the bank of the Yamuna the gopis sitting there like lotus pose, back straight, like like really concentrating, and he's like, what are y'all doing? They're like, we're trying to forget Krishna. So it's like everybody's trying to remember Krishna, they're trying to forget Krishna. So it's like their devotional service is so strong that they're taking to those processes to forget Krishna. But they can't forget Krishna, so it's just bringing them closer to Krishna. But the point is that we could see, what happens when we get to the spiritual world. First of all, we'll never be by ourselves. We're not God. God doesn't even like to be by himself. So it's not like I'm going to transcend and make it to a point where it's like, okay, now I don't have to deal with anybody. I'm just going to sit here and meditate. No, there's activity. There's things to do. There's life to live. And, so we hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam, all of this is working up to the 10th canto where we can see that directly of, we took Lord Damodar off the altar, but that was a good example of, here's one exchange of love between the Lord and his devotees. But, it's very, 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 very variegated. But it's interesting because these people who are attached to more of what you mentioned, they could think that what we're doing in our conception of the Lord is actually limiting, where more of an impersonal conception is more variegated or more expansive, you could say. It's another point that Sanatana Goswami was touching on in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. But yeah, I'd have to read that and get back to you on this point before I like fishtail out of the question and point. But the point that he made was that in reality, the Lord as a person has much more variegatedness, much more qualities, much more expansive, whereas the impersonal conception is actually more limiting. And the way that he displayed that was very nice. So that's just a few thoughts and points and rambles. Does anybody have any other final questions or comments or thoughts or reflections? Yes. Burning reflection?
Can I share a reflection?
Yeah.
Um, I appreciate you speaking on how some people might think like, oh, I should go here and I'll be happier if I go there, or if I do this, I'll be happier. But I like how you mentioned that it's an internal thing, it's an internal transformation, not external. But I wanted to kind of add that, like with devotees, you know, at least from my little knowledge, I haven't found that all devotees can just live one way in the same way. We all kind of have to be in different places to practice. So it seems that sometimes, even though in the internal mood is I want to serve Krishna better, and I've been offered a service, or I have the sense that, oh, okay, if I go there, I will be happier because I'll be serving Krishna. Um, then I'll have to change my external situation. So I think there's also that aspect too. Um, it's really hard to like judge external let me think, like how devotees choose different external situations and judge it as, oh, they're just gratifying their senses and falling away from the practice. But I don't think that's always true. I mean, I think that every devotee is protected by Krishna, and at least the ones that I've met, they all seem very sincere, and their decisions to go somewhere else to see that if that it may help their devotional service or their sadhana better than where they may have been previously. Um, so yeah, I just get confused about this because sometimes I think, oh my gosh, am I doing it all wrong? Like thinking that I should go here, I should be doing this instead. Um, but yeah, it's all a dance, it seems. Anyways, that was some thoughts I had from your realizations. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's actually a very, very deep point. So it's important to know the tattva and it's important to know where we're at. Because the tattva is that external changes won't make me happy. Only an internal shift by serving Krishna will make me happy. But I know I might not be there, so I might need external shifts to help me be in a more favorable situation because I'm acting from a conditioned platform, and then that situation might help me remember Krishna better. So, like one example is, at the temple here, there's quite a few brahmacharis. One could think, okay, let me go get married, then I'll be happy. So it's like being married will not make you happy, but it might be a favorable circumstance, a situation to help you in your conditioned life so you can be more enthusiastically engaged in service, which will bring purification so you can continue in your service. So you can apply that same principle to, let me live in this ashram, let me live in this city, let me live at this temple. It might be there, but we should always understand that the external thing will never actually do it for us, because on the further elaborating on, say, the Grihastha ashram, is that the whole point is for purification. Everything is done with rules and regulations and restrictions so you can become purified. And ultimately, the Shastra advises to give it up. So it's not like you take to this platform and then this is happiness. No, everything that we're doing is geared towards purification. And when it's directly connected to Krishna, it will be purifying, and it should reveal that to us more and more and more and more. But yeah, it's a really finicky thing, because at times we may think, okay, I don't need any of the externals. I'm just going to go internal. And okay, this is blissful. This is happy. I mean, this is amazing. But then our conditioned nature catches up with us. It's like reveals our limitations of where we're really at. And in this way, it all comes out in the wash as the purification's taking place. We really see where we're at. So it's helpful to take advice and guidance from more senior Vaishnavas rather than making our own decisions on our own whims, because I think, okay, I'm not happy here. Let me go here, go there. Maybe it will be better for me in my devotional service long term. But maybe I'm just not happy because, I was trying to be too austere and I ate too little prasadam, and now I'm disturbed and I'm going to make some like rash decision. So that's just a few other thoughts. One could, one last thing. I know it's over time, but yeah, whatever happiness and distress that we get, it's already destined. It will come to us. It will just come in different shades. So that's the whole point, is that we want to change the externals, but really whatever's going to come is going to come. But like I said, we have to deal with where we're at. So everybody, thank you for hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai.